Atlanta was where I wanted to go, and that's part of the rerouting. In my mind, I'm like, "I'm going back to Atlanta where the cost of living is better, where my friends are, quality of life is gonna be better." And so I just knew that was what was gonna happen if I moved anywhere. And when God said to me, "No, ma'am, you're you're going to Texas." Now listening more for his voice, and what I've learned in listening for his voice is that he's always speaking. He always has been speaking, and he speaks in such creative and different ways.
No human being can fathom what God has prepared for those who love him. Seen, heard, imagined.
Hey, welcome to this episode of Seen, Heard, Imagined, and I have Monica Randle here with me today. She's a licensed professional clinical counselor and founder of Mental Wealth Works, where their goal is to build mental wealth in individuals, families, and communities through therapeutic experiences and interventions. Mental Wealth Works also provides virtual therapy to individuals residing in California, Georgia, and Texas. Welcome, Monica.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, today I really wanted to focus on talking about you being rerouted and how our Father in heaven seems to like to shake things up for us in our lives. Uh, One very specific story in my life just it screams at me, and that's the journey with becoming a caregiver to my mother and how I used to live in Northern California. And as soon as she had her stroke, boom, everything changed. And here I am in Memphis, Tennessee.
Mhm.
So I want to talk about that, the shaking up of routines, locations, or even careers. That
Pretty
happens
much.
to us sometimes. So
Mhm.
I hear that your life has been shaken up
Mhm.
lately,
Mhm.
and you've been hearing the Lord talk to you about this, but in the past you probably haven't really paid as much attention to his voice or taken heed to his voice. Can you tell me about
Mhm.
that?
Yeah, for sure. So, like, I wasn't so much, I would say, when I was younger or young-minded, I wasn't focused on relationship with God. I was just focused on, the doing, which, when you grow up in church, that's what you see depending on kind of what your environment is go to church, participate in all these things. And prayer scripture is still taught, but not so much, excuse me, not so much relationship. And so as I got older, um like, I focused on relationship. I was intentional about relationship, and so, seeking God and definitely now listening more for his voice, and what I've learned in listening for his voice is that he's always speaking. He always has been speaking, and he speaks in such creative and different ways, and so, I think it could be discouraging, I think, too, growing up and you kind of experience these people saying, "Well, I heard God say," and you're like, "Did you? How did he sound?" Like, and you didn't hear it, so you're just like, "Well, I guess just that's I'm just not gonna hear God." But that's not the case. He could be speaking to you in so many different ways that it may not necessarily be an auditory voice. It could be through dreams, it can be through nature, it can be through messages and other people, scripture. And so, that's what I've learned, that I've also just been intentional about just opening my eyes and opening my ears and looking for it.
Hmm, that's so good. And I have a random question because I'm so curious about your profession as a therapist. Do you often talk about spirituality in your sessions with your clients?
Yeah, so not often. Well, I'll say this. I love it when I can, when there is a client who says, they are Christian and they want to implement that in our practice. So during my intake, I'll ask about spirituality and I'll ask about the cultural aspects that may impact treatment. And so with that, if they say, I am a Christian, I'll ask, okay, what kind of practices do you have in your walk with God? And they'll say prayer, or they'll say, I read scripture. Um, and so I'll say, well, would you like to implement, that in our treatment? And though most of the time will say yes. Usually, those that have told me they're Christians, they don't really shy away from that. There's others that make it very clear, I'm not religious, I don't believe in anything, or I believe in XYZ. And so with that, ethically, I don't, um, bring up my background unless they ask. But, but when they do, I'm just so happy. Like before, I think earlier in my career, as I was like just growing in God myself, it wasn't that, um, it didn't, I guess, it wasn't so, like, big for me to, like, make sure that I'm integrated as far as, like, spirituality and professionalism. But now the integration is so important to me, and it feels so authentic, um, where I'm gonna show up how I am anyway. God is whether you're Christian or not, you're going to experience God when you talk to me because God is within me. But, of course, if you're not, uh, a Christian, I'm not gonna force that or make you uncomfortable with what I believe in. However, if you are, I'm just super excited to talk about God and how we can implement that into your life and hopefully create the life that you're looking for as far as being more healthy and grounded.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I like that. And I think that's really important for people to understand. It's never something that's going to be forced on a client, but it
Yeah.
is important for those who are seeking psychotherapy, life coaching,
Yeah.
what have you, to make it very clear that that is foundational to your day to day life or in your belief system, because that can create a great deal of support and healing, I believe, mentally and emotionally. And it's just another ingredient, I think, for those who are believers, to help them have the tools to cope with whatever comes, what comes, what may.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for
I'll say
sharing that with
too.
me. Yes,
Yeah, you're
please.
welcome. I'll say too, like, there's some clients who maybe don't, even though they're saying they're welcoming that into the conversation, it may not come up unless, I'm aware they're Christian and I'll ask a question. Like, they'll say they're struggling with something, and I'll say, okay, how does your spirituality play a part in this? In other words, how are you seeking God in this situation? Are there any spiritual practices that you've already tried to implement to help manage whatever symptoms or emotions that you're experiencing right now? And so once I say that or ask that question, then it kind of opens up something for them, and they're just like, oh, maybe I didn't think about how God is using me in this situation, or how I can ask God for help in this situation.
For you, what have you been hearing from him about life transitions?
Yeah, so like you, I didn't know that you moved to care for your mom, so thank you for sharing that. Because I feel like, um, when I did, see your page on LinkedIn after I did a podcast with, Miriam recently, for some reason, I thought that would be cool if, if I was able to join her. And then Marion ended up, or you reached out to me, or we connected on LinkedIn, and then Marion reached out to me about it. And I was like, oh my goodness. But there was so many, like, relatable pieces. One,
Mm.
finding out that you used to live in California as well. Um, Also your animation character's name is Monica.
Yeah, that's all right.
And then yeah, and then finding out today that you're caring for your mother, that's kind of what's taken place with me and how God has rerouted
Mm.
me. So, there's just this really long story of supernatural events that have taken place. So I'll try to summarize it. But, I feel like I was groomed, if that's the correct word, since childhood, pretty much, to take care of my cousin who is my father and my, late uncle's age, because 'cause they're twins, and she grew up with them, right next door, actually. And so, because my dad is not in the state to care for her, my uncle, his twin, has passed away, I will be, next in line to care for her, and happy to do so. I feel like growing up, because of the relationship that I had with her, which was very close, even her mom, like, when I was a kid, used to, ask me to watch her, or not watch her per se, but stay with her while she went out of town. So it's kinda like a respite. And looking back now, I'm like, I was always meant to do this. I was always equipped to do this. And so, when my uncle passed away, because he was her last, guardian, he passed away in September of last year, and her mother, who was also my dad and his aunt, she passed away the following or the previous year in 2023. So, just this trickle of events that took place, and then I'm like, when he passed away, I'm like, "Okay, it's time for me to move because I need to be closer to her," and I actually considered if she could move where I was, and I wasn't sure if I was gonna stay in California, so I was like, "That doesn't make sense." Atlanta was where I wanted to go, and that's part of the rerouting. In my mind, I'm like, "I'm going back to Atlanta where the cost of living is better, where my friends are, quality of life is gonna be better," and so I just knew that was what was gonna happen if I moved anywhere, and when God said to me, "No, ma'am, you're you're going to Texas." Now, he and I had plenty of conversations, about that because I was just, like, trying to wrap my head around, "You're really sending me back to Texas?" And here's just a little background about that. I never in my life thought I would go back to Texas because I just recently learned, 1, I knew I had these feelings about living in Texas, but I didn't really know why. Like, I read this book or I'm reading this book called, The Whole Brain Child, and it's basically I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a book really for parenting and anybody that works with kids, and in my practice, I do work with children, so I'm reading this book, and as a part of the book, it talks about kind of narrative therapy and kind of, sharing your story, narrating it, but the story doesn't have to end with a period, basically. It's a comma, and it's just a continuation of adding details to help the child to kind of understand or to make sense of how things have taken place because we can sometimes get focused on, well, this happened and then it hurt really bad and then period, right? But it could be this happened, it hurt really bad, but now look where I am. Now I have support, comma, it's continuing. And so, I realized in reading there was this, example of a child who was, like, scared to go to swim class because, there was an incident, and he didn't put the 2 together, but he was just like, "I don't wanna go to swim class," and so his parents understood, "Oh, it's because something happened." And when they helped him to narrate that story, they were like, "You remember when, this happened and you were really scared and but you're okay now and you really love to swim." And so then putting all those details together, he finally understood, "Okay, that happened, but I am okay and I do still like to swim, so I'm gonna try again." And so with me, I realized, 1, it was relatable for me for swimming too, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's kind of where I am with the water." But then I thought about Texas, and I was like, "Oh my goodness." I was like, "I have been resistant to go back to Texas all this time because every time I've gone back to live, it's been an experience that's not ideal." When I was a kid and we moved from California to Texas, that wasn't ideal for me. I'm just like, "You're picking me up and placing me somewhere else." Now I have to start over with friends. I was already shy and quiet, and I feel like I never really caught up. Like, I was just, like, still, like, "Are you really, like, are we really here?" And so, as soon as I graduated high school, I was out of there, and, then I went back for a year as an adult, as a young adult, and I stayed for 10 months, and then I left again and went back to Atlanta.
You bounced.
So yeah, but at that time, even that 10 months, it wasn't an ideal situation, like, I was kind of in a low place trying to figure out things and,
Mm.
very depressed at that time, and so when I went back to Atlanta, it just things picked back up for me, my friends were around, I had support, and it just felt better, and so I'm now seeing I associated negativity with Texas, and so now that I have to go back, I was fighting it, I was like, "No, don't send me back, it's gonna be bad again." But what I learned, through this book and just self-reflection was that, I'm different and my mindset is different. This is a different season, so I'm gonna have a different experience.
I like that.
Yeah.
You're owning it. You're proclaiming, "We are gonna have a
Yeah.
different experience when I go
Yeah.
there."
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. What else has been coming up? And how has God been talking to you about a rerouting? And is it just really all about the fact that we need to caregive for a loved one?
No, actually, so my career change that happened in 2024 in January. Well, actually December the previous year. For some reason, I heard God say, it's time to leave corporate. And I was just like, I was like, being me, anybody that knows me would be like, she's not gonna do that. Like, I'm too structured. I'm a planner. Like, I'm just like, no. I would have been in any other time scared to do that, and I would have absolutely resisted it. But I had such peace, and he said, it's time for you to go. There's no more movement up in this company. I have been there for 12 years. And so, but even rewind a little bit, like I hadn't been in private practice for a while because I just kind of got burned out and corporate was fine. But then when George Floyd was killed, I was like, I'm sitting here like encouraging people to go to therapy and I have the ability to offer it myself. And I just felt like I could meet a need. So I was urged by God to go back into direct care. And so I started off part time while I was working corporate. And then when he told me it's time to leave corporate, first I was super excited. I was actually on my way to Texas to visit my parents with my brother. And I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna send this email. I'm gonna do it. And I was pumped up. So I did it. And then a week later, I was like, oh my gosh, what did I do? I was like, God, did you really say do this? And so
Yeah.
I'm like screaming inside and I'm scared and anxious. And I'll give you an analogy of what I've kind of explained how it felt. It was like God was telling me, "I need you to jump off this cliff, and I'm going to catch you at some point. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you at what point I'm going to catch you, but I'm going to catch you." And so I'm just like, I felt like I jumped off the cliff, and I'm like waiting for him to catch me, and and I'm like, "Where are you?" Like I'm falling. I'm scared, but what I can envision is that at some point, he's going to help me to soar in the other direction. And right now, it just feels like a fall and it feels like there's not much support, but he's really right there. So yeah, he told me to leave and he kind of transitioned me into full-time therapy. I think because he knows me and he knows that how his daughter's mind works. And he transitioned me in such a way where it was like, okay, I know you're scared. Let me let me give you a little cushion. So I had a contract with the company to do like peer reviews and quality care for 6 months. After that, the contract ended, and then I'm solely doing therapy full time. And so I'm having to figure out the business side, insurance, all that stuff. But it just happened in the right timing, based on I think God how God knew me and what I needed. And so that's where I am today, currently working as a full-time therapist in private practice, still learning lots of business things. But I feel like had that not happened, I wouldn't be in a position to I could still uproot my life because I was working remotely for the company,
Yeah.
the corporate company. However, the flexibility wouldn't have been there. And
Right.
so it
Right.
just all worked in its perfect time. It was divinely orchestrated.
So, Monica, this transition to Texas, we have a different mindset. We feel good. We feel positive. We're going to make it a good thing no matter what.
Mhm.
What do you like most about this transition you're about to make?
So there's a lot of things that I can appreciate about Texas. But I think primarily the fact that me getting closer to my cousin is going to relieve some anxiety for me because I'm so far and I'm having
Mm.
to manage things from here and travel back and forth. Um, and also it'll help her, to have someone there that's fighting for her, that's, consistently showing up for her. So that part. But the part that I can appreciate about Texas is, 1, the food. The food is better, I feel like. But also my parents are there, my godson's there, you know, with California being so sunny most of the time, I can appreciate the rain in Texas, the calming rain. Um, so there's those things, and again, just having this perspective of this just has to be different this time because God is doing something different. He's already done something different with me. I see the growth, and I don't want to get emotional, but I feel like just the younger version of me wouldn't even have been able to be this hopeful. I would have been so focused on like things that have taken place that I just couldn't see past that. And I feel like he's done so much work with me, even giving me comfort about this move that I'm like, I'm expecting different. And I'm also just surrendered and submitted. If he doesn't even do anything else for me, I'm happy that he's using me to do something for my cousin. I'm happy that I'm obedient enough to help other people. And in that, honestly, I do feel the gift. I feel good about just being able to show up for folks.
Yeah. You'll be in service. You'll be in service, but people with disabilities, they're sick, they're shut in, they need advocates
Mhm.
so badly.
Yeah.
So badly. It's
Mhm.
it's tough work, but yeah, I really commend you. Now, what do you think will be the
Thank you.
most challenging though?
So I think that as God is working on like my comfort moving to Texas and my new mindset, my new expectations, I feel like that's still a work in progress. I feel like it's like grieving a little bit. It's which comes in waves. So I expect me to have some days where it's not so easy, and then I expect to have days where I'm more hopeful. And I think I can give myself grace in that process. Because honestly, sometimes it does pop up in my head, like, what if, I did get to go back to Atlanta where my friends are versus me having to start completely over in Texas? Or, what would that look like? Or, um, I just think that there is gonna be a grieving process, and I think he's gonna comfort me through that process because I have to get through the thoughts of, my plans are changed, and I'm relying solely on his and trusting his plans. And in that, I do find comfort, but I have to be honest, like, emotions do come up and they vary, and grieving is a process.
Yeah. Yeah, I fully understand that. Some people know this, that both my mother and I were in Northern California. She had her own home. I had my own home. We were about 2 hours apart from one another. And when word came that she had had a stroke and that she needed to be rehabilitated, her left side was about 80% paralyzed. And we had family in Illinois, we had family in Georgia, Virginia, Texas as well, but it was just the two of us. So it was only me. And it was very challenging to get my mom on Medicaid or, well, specifically Medi-Cal out in California. And we were denied. And then I had to liquidate her life, watching someone build up their entire life and then have to just tear it all down for the sake of finding the financing for the level of care she needed was very difficult. You talk about that grieving process very quickly, maybe about 2 months into her rehabilitation. Here I am in my mid 30s, unmarried, having all these hopes and dreams and aspirations. And I realized very quickly all those things are either going to be put on hold or they're just not going to happen for me. And then the decision to uproot, it was tough, but it was fascinating because very quickly I had to really count everything, count the cost of everything mentally, emotionally, financially. My mother's money was running out. I'm working a corporate job and I have my own home to take care of. Nothing's paid off for anyone. What are we going to do? So eventually, the answer was we can't stay in California to have the long-term care that we need for her. I can't stay in California to have the lifestyle I hope to have later down the line. It's not going to work. So, the uprooting, I thought Georgia would be a choice as well. I went, and during COVID, actually, 2020, I ran out to Georgia. I caught like 13 flights during COVID, and it's amazing. I never got sick, never got sick. But I was house shopping, looking for a home that, because the world seemed to be falling apart during that time. You didn't know what was going to happen with the healthcare system or with assisted livings or with nursing homes. So very quickly, I'm scrambling to look for a home that, if for whatever reason I have to have her home, that could accommodate her if I had to make adjustments. Went there, and God was like, well, you got family in Tennessee as well. You should look in Tennessee. I was supposed to go right back to California. I rerouted to Tennessee, found an agent. I said, hey, I'm flying in. This is a situation. Beautiful, wonderful lady. She said, I'm going to be here for you when you land. Okay. I'm like, okay, great. And we went shopping around, and I finally landed here, but bought an appropriate home, a beautiful home, and got her transitioned and transported from California, wheelchair bound, never could walk again. We can never get her up and going again. And got her positioned, worked on the Medicaid application here, had to wait a year to even see if the financing was going to come through. And I would tell you, Monica, I would look up around my home, and I would
Mhm.
start to resent it. It was very clear
I
God told me to
mean,
make the move. And there was a
yeah,
peace about it. And a lot of people thought I was crazy, because to do all
yeah,
that, everything, you're going to dismantle. You already have to dismantle your mother's life, but you're going to
yeah.
dismantle your own. It was about survival, and it made sense logically and spiritually. I felt good about it. But when I got here and I had to wait to even see if the
Mhm.
financing was going to go through, I resented my home. I resented
Mhm.
being here in this space. I didn't understand the point of it anymore. But
Mhm.
eventually, in time, to your point, Father's always there. Our
Yeah.
Creator is always present, even during the low times, even when you
Yeah.
can't feel that net underneath you that He promised He would
Mhm.
catch you with. He was
Mhm.
there, and He remained. And
He's there.
so, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he wants us to look for it, seek
Hmm.
and you shall find, knock and the
Hmm.
door will be opened. And yeah, we have to look for it. He is always there. He is always speaking. And what you just said, um, first of all, that was very touching. But I noticed too for me, just like for you, it sounds like the yes is always easy, especially in the beginning, especially when you're on fire and you're just like, I see God everywhere and yeah. And it's a yes. Of course it's a yes. But then when it's not so hard, I mean, not so easy and everything is not going smooth, it's like the hardest thing to say yes, but we still say yes. And we still have to trust that he's gonna, even though some of the process being shaky could be a lesson for us to our lesson is, or at least it's strengthening us to have stronger faith. Because when we do get on the other side, we're gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, like he was working the whole time."
Yeah. You see how everything was strung together and orchestrated. And I don't think we always get to see that with every situation in our lives, but if we do seek, I think He's very good at being like, hey, this is why. And whether it's a communication from a loved one, whether it's you landing a new job and a career in a foreign place, or you're meeting your person, what have you, He has a way of letting you know, this is why. This
Yes.
is why you're here. This is
Yes.
why I brought you here. Thank you for saying yes. Now
Yes.
here
Absolutely.
is something for your heart's desire. I really believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, lady, for coming and talking to me. I enjoyed our conversation. I'm wondering, how can people learn more about your business?
Yeah, so if you are looking for services, therapy services, you can go to my website, which is www.mentalwealthworkstherapy.com. So make sure that W is there in place of the H. And I'm licensed in California, Georgia, and Texas. So for those living in those states, services are available to you. I'm actively accepting clients. If you just want mental health and faith based content, you can go to my Instagram page, which is Mental Wealth Works. And also was you can find my business on Psychology Today and ZocDoc, if you're looking for services as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Now, before we go, I have a little tradition. I want to ask you to pass on a message, a prayer, a hope, a well wish to my next guest. What would it be? What do you have to say to that person?
I would say to that person, do everything in love, and that is a scripture. I just don't remember exactly what book it's in. And I could look it up if we have time. But do everything in love, but also look for God. Look for God, look for where he's speaking, look for where he's trying to use you because everything is not about you. Everything is not about us. Sometimes it's about somebody else. And we have to look for that and be open to that.
Hmm. Well, I'm curious which scripture you are referring to, so we
Okay.
have
All right.
time.
Let's look up the scripture. Do everything in love. It is Corinthians 16:14. And it's very simple, however, very powerful in those few words. And if you can keep that at the forefront of your head, I think as you're just moving through the day, it helps to make decisions. It helps with like redirecting your thoughts and asking yourself, is this in love? Am I doing this in love? Am I reacting in love? Are my thoughts in love? Um, then that really just helps. And it helps to just keep you in kind of a gratefulness mindset.
Well, the previous guest had a prayer for you to consider. The prayer is, Dear God, I seek refuge in you from knowledge that does not benefit, from a heart which is not shy, a heart that does not quiver, from eyes that do not shed tears, from a soul that is never satisfied, a self that is never satisfied. I seek refuge in you from a prayer that is not answered.
I love that.
It's beautiful.
That is. It sounds like trust.
Mm, putting a
Mhm.
lot of trust in him.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
devotional this morning that I read, it actually and I wrote this down too. Um, I feel like it was great timing to say here, he provides what we need as we trust in him, and that's what that prayer reminded me of.
Being rerouted. This is a great
Yes.
conversation. Thank you. I think a lot of people will relate to this one. I appreciate you coming on
I'm
the
glad.
show.
I appreciate you inviting me. It was supposed to happen, and I'm happy it did.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And best of luck and blessings on your transition to Texas.
Thank you. I receive it. Thank you, and best of luck and blessings to you as well and all that you are carrying right now, and I pray for peace and comfort for you and your family.
Does your soul feel ignited by what you heard today? Then show your support by clicking the subscribe button on the YouTube channel or follow our page. You'll receive alerts when new content is available and stay informed of any special contests or giveaways held by this podcast sponsor. Thanks for watching and listening.